I love Mondays with Mike Heller.
Broadcasting live from an undisclosed bunker in the Badger State. This is I Love Mondays with Mike Heller. Powered by determination and a little bit of duct tape. Here's your host, Mike Heller.
Sometimes more duct tape than innovation. So here we go. How about this for a day? Like, okay, so in Wisconsin, it's sunny, depending on where you are, and going to get to a high in southern Wisconsin, southeastern Wisconsin, Milwaukee, Madison, of about 60 degrees. Okay, so that's secondary to all of it. And I'm not a weatherman, so it can be, the weather can be whatever it is where you are. But it's a nice looking day outside. You got the Masters golf coverage, which began on Prime and Paramount Plus and ESPN Plus and Masters.com, beginning first thing this morning with At the Practice Tee and the honorary first tee shots hit by Gary Player, Jack Nicklaus, and Tom Watson. She got that going on all day, and now for the next 4 days, and the weather in Augusta, Georgia is glorious. Hello, friends. So that's great. You get a Brewers off day, which in this regard allows you Masters and hockey conversation throughout the day. The Brewers are off to a good start at 8-4. And as we do on Thursdays, we will visit with Vinny Rottino, but he won't join me out of the gate. He'll be with us at about 10:25 if you're watching on the live side of it, or about 22 minutes from now if you're watching as a download at some point later in the day. You get Brewers conversation. They release uniforms today too. They're City Connect, which are State Connect. They're kind of cool. I'm not a big jersey guy, but we'll have a little bit of that conversation. And then we're going to get to Badger hockey, and we'll do that in just a moment. Bryan Posick is in Las Vegas. Wisconsin will take on North Dakota today at 4 o'clock in the Frozen Four. It's Denver and Michigan in the nightcap. The two winners are going to meet for a national championship on the ice in Las Vegas on Saturday. Posick in a moment. But let me get to our sponsors quick. Well, let's do this quick because this is a tradition also unlike any other. James says, good Masters morning. Mike, 21, good morning from Merrill, friend of Dan Byer, friend of Dan Byer's family. And also, I don't know exactly what that means, but I'm sure that there's something important in that, Mike. Not sure what it is, though. Okay, now let's get quickly to my sponsors. I want to thank our presenting sponsors, One Community Bank, where clients are the number one priority, feel good banking. Also presented by M3 Insurance. Go to m3ins.com. With M3, you get it all. Also presented by our friends at Neuroscience Group with brain, spine, and pain care. Go to neurosciencegroup.com. And also brought to you by Potawatomi Sportsbook and Casino. You know, I talk about the NCAA tournament. It's a great place to watch at Potawatomi and make your sports bets. Well, Masters fans like to do that as well. And brought to you by Habish, and Rotier. 13 locations to ensure you get a hometown attorney to protect your wants and needs. Let me bring in my friend Bryan Posick, who is in Las Vegas, Nevada. Nothing says college hockey like Las Vegas, Nevada. We bring in Posick. It is the Frozen Four. And I say you got it fully covered. You got you got the screen going with all the Masters behind you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know, and I feel good, too, because I picked Jose Maria Olazabal to win it, and he's off to a good start at -2.
I just have to switch a little thing here so I can hear you.
Our
listeners could hear you, but I couldn't. So I just switched that. But yeah, you got full Masters coverage going on behind you.
Yeah, I just said I feel good because I picked Jose Maria Olazabal to win it. And he's
did you?
-2 to start.
You know, I'll take the opposite of that, and we'll do all right. Patrick Reed's having a good start, too. You know, old golfers do well at that golf course because they've seen it so many times. Exactly. So the old guard will have their moments. I don't think Jose Maria Olazabal will hang, but
no.
Hey, how cool is this? You haven't been to the Frozen Four since 2010?
Correct.
So, I mean, it's a long time coming. The program, I was talking to Polzine about this on Wednesday. and you and I visited about this the last time we talked. I mean, the margin is razor thin, right? They got to sit and wait after they get beat by Ohio State in the Big Ten quarterfinal. Mm-hmm. And they have to then sit and wait, and they have no control because they know what has to happen, and they need other results just to make the tournament field, that razor thin margin of what you get a chance to do. And other good things happen that allowed Wisconsin initially just to even be in the tournament.
Yeah, and they put themselves in a hole with the 6-game losing streak they had in January. Yeah. But yeah, and you're right. I mean, they put themselves in a hole after they lost to Ohio State and had to wait for what happened in the other conference tournaments. And thankfully for the Badgers, Dartmouth ended up beating Princeton in the ECAC tournament, which gave Wisconsin an at-large bid and a berth against the Big Green, who they beat in Worcester before knocking off Michigan State a couple of days after. But they had also won a big game at home against Michigan, and they closed the regular season with 2 very important wins and impressive wins at Penn State. Had they lost any of those 3 games, Mike, I don't think I'd be sitting in Vegas right now. So they did enough to put themselves in position. They got some help. And as the players will tell you, when they watch those conference tournaments and realize finally they're in, hey, we're not going to take this for granted. We're going to do everything we can to win a couple of games, get to Vegas, and let the chips fall where they may. And they've done an excellent job. And, they found a way to rally from 2 goals down with under 5 minutes left to beat the Spartans. And I still think in some form or fashion, they're riding that high. Yeah. There's some momentum here, no question about it.
Well, and that began with the Dartmouth. Now, you talk about Dartmouth winning to get Wisconsin in the tournament. And that game hangs in the balance until late. And there's such parallels between that game and the Michigan State game. I was talking to Mike Hastings about this before they left on our Badger Connect podcast about the similarities in the Dartmouth game and what he was facing late down 2 against Michigan State, because they're down 2 inside of 5 minutes. And he said at about the 8-minute mark, the conversation began of when we bring Hauser back to the bench, because Dartmouth had to make the same decision, only down 1, but they had to make the same decision early, and it obviously backfired on them. And for Wisconsin, they were in that mode, right? Post and then it's flipped inside of 5 minutes, about 34 seconds apart.
Yeah, you think about Wisconsin hasn't handled emptying their net very well. Yeah. They've given up an inordinate amount of extra attacker goals, and therefore the games are over, and they're on the wrong side of the ledger. But thankfully for Mike, he was a little bit more patient, but he also noticed that the team was pushing and that Michigan State was on its heels. So as he said, he trusted in his players that they would get the job done. And eventually they did, without having to make that sacrifice of pulling your goaltender and leaving that net wide open. He trusted his players, and it paid off.
We visited on this last week after Wisconsin qualified, but what I loved about those goals, I'm going to revisit it for those who weren't part of that conversation. What I loved about those goals, 34 seconds apart, that got that game into overtime against Michigan State and put Wisconsin in the Frozen Four, was that they were hard hat goals. They were aggressive, workmanlike, go get it goals. It wasn't beautiful tic-tac-toe hockey. It was, I mean, they were buzzing the net, right? And that's what you were just talking about with Hastings. Recognize that they were already doing that work. So let's just be patient here.
Yeah, they were garbage man goals. They really were. They were beautiful when they found the back of the net, right? But they were, they were not beautiful as they transpired. Although I will say on Morrissey's game-tying goal, Dexheimer threw a rocket at the net. Somehow Christian Fitzgerald was able to knock down and keep possession on his stick, and then fired a quality shot that Trey Augustine kicked out, but he kicked it right to Morrissey, who put it in the open net. Wisconsin's going to need that against North Dakota, and if they continue against Denver or Michigan, whoever it is. The one thing with North Dakota, though, they are one of the best teams in the country in limiting quality shots. They don't give up the middle of the ice very much. They have a bunch of big gorillas in the back end. Defensively, they're very, very strong. Their forwards back check, back pressure, and make it difficult not only to enter the zone, but then when you do, can you get pucks to the net? So Wisconsin's going to have to do exactly what it did the last 5 minutes against Michigan State, and that's get to the net and don't back down.
Bryan, Mike Hastings has been to the Frozen Four twice when he was at Minnesota State Mankato. But I don't believe, maybe you're going to correct me here if I'm wrong, but I don't believe there's a Badger skater that has been in this environment at the Frozen Four. So how do they manage that? There's nervous tension and excitement. I don't know if it's better to play the first game or the second game, but it's there and it's real. How have you kind of gauged how they might manage this?
It's an interesting question. North Dakota doesn't have anybody that's been there either. They haven't been there since they won it in 2016. So as far as this game, both teams are in the same boat. Now, when you get to Saturday, if you're fortunate enough to do so, you're going to face a Michigan team that's in the Frozen Four for the third time in 4 years, and a Denver team that won the title in 2024. And in 2022, when they beat Minnesota State, Hastings Mavericks, for the national championship. But I don't know what I suppose everybody thinks differently when they hit the pillow at night. Somebody's dreaming about scoring the game winner, or somebody's dreaming about not making a mistake. What's going through the minds of those 19 skaters that will be taking the ice plus the goaltender today? What's going through their minds leading up to this? When they're sitting at breakfast, are they focused? Are they vegging out? Are they freaking out? We're all going to find out together, and that's what makes it fun. You just don't know what's going to happen, so you play the game and may the best team win.
And they're going to play on. This still sounds silly to some, but you certainly get it. They're going to play on good ice, right? And there have been times in the NCAA tournament where they're putting in ice at an arena that it hadn't had. But they're playing right where the Vegas Knights?
They are. The thing is, though, that they had to resurface the ice and put down the logos for the NCAA Frozen Four. So this is actually relatively new ice.
Okay.
And so yesterday, all four teams went through their practice sessions, and they got the ice for an hour. There were not a lot of glowing reviews for the ice surface. So, and it's also been 90 plus degrees here. Now, inside the building, they have it temperature controlled, and it's only 10 years old. It's a beautiful place, by the way. But it might play a factor. Yeah, the pucks might be hopping, but the puck isn't going to hop like it did at Ford Field in 2010 when you're playing in a football stadium and they had no idea what they were doing. The ice will be fine. Both teams have to play on it. That's what the coaches and players will say. So we'll see how it goes, and hopefully the bounces go Wisconsin's way.
There's such a great history with Wisconsin and North Dakota. It's not a recent history. It's a WCHA history. People talk about the water bottle game, and I think you'll know this better than I, but looking from the outside in, it's probably the second greatest rival that Wisconsin had behind Minnesota. Is that fair to say?
I would say so. What's different about North Dakota is you don't like the Gophers, but you hate playing against North Dakota because they're so hard and physical. Gopher fans, I think, would say Minnesota's or Wisconsin is their number one rival, but then there's North Dakota, and it's it's just a different feel for whatever reason. But this is the 174th meeting between these teams, but it's only the fourth time they played each other in the NCAA tournament. And Wisconsin's never won a tournament game. They lost in '82 in the national championship game, the same season of that water bottle fiasco at the Dane County Coliseum, where Jim Archibald comes running out of the tunnel on his skates on concrete and throws a haymaker at the Badger bench. Rob Andringa was a stick boy that day and was fortunate he wasn't murdered or killed that day. I saw Doc Andringa here yesterday, and we were talking about that game, and Doc was saying how he and his wife were sitting up in the stands watching that, and Phyllis was fearful that her son was going to lose his life because he was right in the middle of it. And when they finally found him after the game, he said, "Wasn't that awesome?" So that's typical Robbie, right? Of course he did. But they're similar now. They made a coaching change last year. Brad Berry had replaced Dave Haxtell, led North Dakota to the national championship in 2016, but they hadn't gotten back. and Dane Jackson was the associate head coach the last 9 years. They fire Barry and elevate Jackson, who played for Gino Gasparini, who won a couple of national titles at North Dakota, playing with guys like Kerry Eads and Jim Archibald. And he's brought back that North Dakota type of play where they're no nonsense and they're going to run right through you. And if you're along the boards, be prepared to be hit and hit again. And I think Wisconsin can handle the physical matchup. They are better when they are physical. So I don't expect them to back down today.
Well, and Mike Hastings grew up about 20 miles from the North Dakota campus, right? So he's very familiar. When I visited with him on the Badger Connect podcast, he said this is probably the most North Dakota team of all time. I mean, he said this is quintessential North Dakota. You talked about it. Big, physical, strong.
Have enough skill, right?
Yeah.
And they roll four lines and they're tenacious and they're menacing. Yes. Watching them skate yesterday and they're in their green, most of them were in their green uniforms. The defensemen especially look like they're 8 feet tall and 300 pounds. They'll be wearing white today as the home team, but there's something about that sweater, even without the Indian had the Fighting Sioux logo on it. There's something about that sweater that can be intimidating, and I don't think Wisconsin will be intimidated today.
Well, what is as a broadcaster, what do you most enjoy, look forward to? How have you soaked in what this week is and then what today is?
Well, I stayed out all night last night, so I just rolled in, right?
Yeah, baby.
So I'm trying to mentally prepare myself for what's to come. I think, as you grow older, what I love about coming to the rink every day, going to games, calling games, is the young men, the players, make me feel young.
Yeah.
I'm doing something that I've always wanted to do, and I'm still doing it at age 60, right?
Yeah.
I am looking forward the most to seeing their reaction after a victory today, much like I did in Worcester when they beat Michigan State, and just the pure joy that those young men shared that day, and hopefully will share a couple of times here in Las Vegas. That's what matters most. And as far as broadcasting the game, I have to make sure my voice is okay. That's why I shouldn't have stayed out so late.
Yep.
I'm just kidding. I was in bed like at 8 o'clock.
Listen, you weren't fooling anybody.
I know. But you just make sure you know the players, call the game, let the puck do the talking, and just be prepared for anything.
Final two for you. Wisconsin has always traveled very well for hockey. This is a little bit different. And listen, Wisconsin fans love being in Vegas. So what have you noticed? Is it a good travel party? Is there a way for you to gauge that?
Yeah, it is a good travel party. I think the excitement is there. It's not what it was back in the WCHA days,
right.
When there was limited. You're watching TV black and white. If you got to see the Badgers on TV, it was public television. 3.5 hours after the opening faceoff.
Right.
There was no social media or anything like that. So to see what was happening, to follow your team, you traveled with the team. You could listen to Paul Brown or Jack Swanson or Chris Moore or Chuck Caton or whomever back in the day. But now it's entirely different. So, and I get it too. If you want to sit in the confines of your own home, feel free. But I know, just talking with people about the flight cost of flights to get out here is crazy, especially from Madison. We've met up with a couple of people the last couple of days, and their flights were packed with Wisconsin fans, all dressed in red, ready to go. Fighting Sioux travel extremely well. Denver is not too far away. They just drive over the mountains and get here. And Michigan will travel well, and they've got a chance to win a national championship in hockey, a week after their men's basketball team wins the national championship. But when you look at the rink, when you watch the game, you'll see sprinkles of different jerseys from all over the country, and you'll probably see some NHL stuff too. But you can tell, you can sense it. And just watching the Badgers practice yesterday, there were a number of fans that made the trek for the free open practice. And any chance they got, there were a couple of guys sitting around. Davis Drewiski, who played for the Badgers in the 06 season, he was sitting there, and I don't know how many people came down to talk to him.
Yeah.
He was surprised they recognized him because he's fat now, he said. But
Yeah.
nevertheless, it's funny talking to Davis, too. It's been 20 years since Wisconsin's won a national championship. And Davis says, it's time. He's talked about it with Adam Burch and Joe Pavelski and all the guys. 2006 was great, but it's time for another. We can't be living on this for 21 years or 22 years. And there'll be a number of those guys from 06 that'll be here today. And then again on Saturday, if we're fortunate to get that far, they want to see Wisconsin on top again. And I think that the young men in the locker room here this afternoon feel their love and are ready to give it their all.
So, Bryan, your broadcast day begins at 3:30 Central Time, right? Is that
3:30 Central Time, and the puck will drop at 4:06. You can watch it on ESPN2. You can also, sync up the radio in Madison. It's on WIBA. It's on the Varsity Network app as well. So if you'd like to do it that way, that's great. Otherwise, John Buchagras and Colby Cohen will do a great job on that broadcast. But it'll start at 3:30. We're going to head over, and it's 2 o'clock local time is the face-off. So it's early for a Thursday. So we'll be bussing over about 11:15 or so and getting ready to go.
And just to let those know, the Varsity app is free and downloadable on your phone. It's such a cool thing. You don't have to pay for anything. It's there, and all of Wisconsin products are available on the Varsity app, from Badger football to basketball and obviously hockey. I have great excitement and joy for you. Yes. I know that this is your passion, and it has been for such a long time. You do a great, fantastic job on the call. I'm so excited for you today. I hope that it's fantastic. I mean, I'm living and breathing with it, and let's go this afternoon. I appreciate on a broadcast day you doing this, and we're all listening and watching this afternoon.
Yeah, Vegas isn't my cup of tea, but I'd be more than happy to stay a couple of more days.
A couple extra days, will you? All right, Bryan, appreciate you very much. Have a great day.
Yeah, thanks for the kind words. Enjoy the day.
It is a great day for hockey, and Wisconsin will play in the Frozen Four against North Dakota. They'll drop the puck at 4:06. Bryan said it's on ESPN2, but you can listen to it on 1310 WIBA in Madison, statewide, or wherever you are on the Varsity app. It's on your phone. Just look up the Varsity app, download it, and it has products from different universities, and you can listen there as well and sync that up, because Post will give it to you from a Wisconsin perspective. Not that Buchagras isn't really good on the network as well, but that's where you're going to get that broadcast coverage today. Wisconsin and North Dakota, and the winner will get the nighttime winner of Denver and Michigan. They'll play the second game, and that's later on tonight in Las Vegas. And then the championship will be played on Saturday. So really good stuff. So excited about what's going on there. And also pretty excited, as we get to do on Thursdays, to talk to Vinny Rottino, who has just spent the last week in Kansas City and then in Boston, where it was balmy and comfortable and beautiful. Hello, Vinny.
Did you bring me on? Yeah, because I thought I was still backstage, and I'm like, wait, no, it was not.
It wasn't comfortable and lovely and warm. Did you really borrow? Was that levering stocking cap you wore yesterday?
It was. I risked it because he was close to being on his deathbed with that sickness and illness that he had. He lost 12 pounds or 10 pounds or something like that. So I risked it because it was that cold. It was freezing. It felt like a winter day in Wisconsin. I guess I should have been used to it because I played high school baseball and college baseball in that kind of weather.
Yep.
But I wasn't. It was freezing.
Yeah, and let me kind of begin there, because these guys spend – listen, they're both playing in the same conditions, but all these teams spend their spring training in Florida or Arizona. Back half of Arizona's spring training was in triple digits. And all these guys have to adjust. Many of them, a lot of the players are Dominican.
Right.
So what is the biggest adjustment difficulty to playing a game when it's 40 degrees and the wind there's a wind chill? What's that biggest adjustment?
You somehow, some way have to you have to be able to play your game with a bunch of layers on. That's the adjustment. Like, you're used to feeling loose. You're used to feeling like you don't need to really warm up that much because it is so warm. It's a summer game, right? Baseball's played in the summer, and all of a sudden now you're playing in, I mean, it was 38 degrees with a wind chill, south of that. So it was really, it's hard to play baseball in that kind of weather. Thank goodness there was no wind. When it's windy and cold, then that is a lot more difficult. I mean, there actually, I take that back.
On that Sal Freeland fly ball yesterday that could have been a play at the plate, and he got wind blown on that, right?
The day game, it was windy. The night game, it was not, which that would have been absolutely miserable if it was windy at night on Saturday, 2 nights ago. So, but yes, it was windy yesterday. So what you have to do, you have to try and find a way, and you could see that Shane Drohan was having trouble gripping the baseball. He even said as much in his post-game conference.
Cold and dry.
Yeah, so whenever it's cold, you can't really grip the baseball as well. I always had problems anyway, throwing to the bases. But when you'd get that ground ball too, like where is that? It's either soaking wet, let's say on a dewy night at one of those nights where it's super cold, or you just can't find the grip of the baseball. So super dry. So it's tough. It's tough in a multitude of ways. And I can't believe those guys had to face Garrett Crochet and Jacob Misiorowski when it was 35 degrees and getting sawed off on their knuckles.
I mean, the whole concept of any time of year, but anytime it's a little bit cold, and it was a lot of bit cold, is that if you don't barrel it, you're going to feel it. I mean, it's going to sting, and you lose feeling in your hands when you get one that's not barreled. And then if it's a foul ball, you got to jump back in and do it again while your hands are tingling and you can't have that full feel. I mean, there's only so much you can do to warm your hands in between pitches and to do things to try and make it feel comfortable.
It feels like your hands are going to break, quite frankly. And they don't. It's just super painful. You take one off the hands, or you take one off the end of the bat. Even Blake Perkins had a base hit off the end of the bat, and you could see him like kind of shake out his hand. And it's like, you'll take that, but it does not feel good. You're trying to avoid that. In fact, you kind of adjust your swing even a little bit just to try and avoid, taking one off the knuckles. And so that's what makes cold weather baseball really difficult. I think when we're talking about this early in the season, it's harder. I feel like late into October and stuff, when guys are playing like in the World Series or playoff games, when it's super cold, it's a little bit different because you've played the entire season and you just feel like you're in a great rhythm. Yeah. You feel like your swing's there, but then all of a sudden it gets cold. So I can sense people might be thinking, oh, what about the World Series and stuff? It's different because of the fact that you've already played a full season and you have the adrenaline of the playoffs as well. Yeah,
and I can remember playing at Oshkosh, some of the spring games that we would play, just like you playing at lacrosse. I mean, it would be – I mean, you have to play them. It's 34 degrees, and you got to play them because there's no time to make them up.
It might be snowing, right? Yeah. It might even be snowing. In fact, there were games that we played in the snow, obviously not accumulating snow, but it's still flurrying, and it's hard to pick up the baseball out of the pitcher's hand when there's big white chunks of snow falling from the sky. Yeah. So, not fun.
It's worse than you playing in games at lacrosse when it was that cold. Me watching from the bench the games that were that cold. We're playing a doubleheader, and Mike's got to spend 5.5, 6 hours on the bench watching, his teammates go out there and do the work. That's even,
and your feet get freezing cold too, right? In your hand, it's not fun.
Do anything.
Well, and that's why we love this state of Wisconsin, right? Yeah, I don't know, just because like we love the game of baseball, we love the Brewers, but yet we're willing to like sacrifice our hands and our well-being to play cold weather baseball and baseball around here.
When Russ Tiedemann would tell somebody to go down in the bullpen and get warmed up, I would go down because the bullpens are on the field. I'd go down and be the bullpen protector. I'd do anything I could do to go do something. If our catcher wasn't ready to go out to warm up the pitcher at the beginning of the next inning because he was on base or whatever, then I'm running out. Whatever you could do. Let's talk about where the Brewers are in their start and what you've seen. They're 8-4, which is a great start. They're tied for the division lead. This division, every team's at 500 or above. The Cubs are in last place, only 2 games out at 6-6. But the Brewers have done a very good job. They lose the last 2 in Boston, and they're doing it. And I remind of this without Churio, without Vaughn. Now they played the back-to-back games without Terang. they're doing it without a lot of offensive weapons that have been fully available to them, and yet it's been pretty good, better than pretty good.
Yes, they're surviving without those guys. And look, I think you can survive without. We've seen them survive without Churio, right? Last year, we saw it in August. Other guys stepped up. That's when Bryce Rank started hitting homers. You can even survive without Vaughn. Now you're going to have trouble against left-handed pitching with those guys out, right? Because those are two guys that really hammer left-handed pitching. But now that Bryce sat the last two games, you could really see how thin their lineup was yesterday in yesterday's ball game against Sonny Gray with Bryce out.
Yeah.
Not that it's a concern of mine, Mike, because I talked to him personally. He said, I'll be fine. Right. So like if he's saying that, he's going to be fine. He's going to be back in the lineup on Friday, tomorrow. And so that is kind of a sigh of relief. However, you don't like hearing that he potentially has something nagging, right? That's tendonitis in his ankle. They're taking care of it, hopefully, and it won't bother him the rest of the year. That is the hope, and that's the most optimistic view. Now, if he's out, like I think Bryce Terang's their best player. Now you have Christian Yelich, who's swinging the bat great. You have William Contreras, who's both an offensive and defensive catcher. So you could argue both those guys are their best player. But to me, Bryce, most complete player, platinum glover, really kind of showing you some things now that he can do offensively. He runs the bases exceptionally well. He's a leader too. So if he's out, okay, I'm a little concerned. So it looked a little thin yesterday. So I think hopefully pencil his name in the lineup, and then around the state here that loves this Brewers team, we can breathe a sigh of relief once that name isn't back in the lineup tomorrow.
Let me ask you about Shane Drone. Yesterday's the first full game that many of us have seen him work. I thought the stuff looked fantastic. Much like we've seen from other young starters, I think physically got a little out of whack because of the excitement pitching against his former team in his major league debut at Fenway. But you could see that the stuff there plays. I mean, he's got very, very good elements to his game. What did you see?
Yeah, I agree. And we saw that in spring training. It's a deceptive fastball. It's 93, 94 miles per hour. He's got a couple of really good breaking balls, although we didn't see those breaking balls really deployed consistently. Yeah. And he even mentioned, so the fact that he wasn't able to grip it, he even said, like, look, this isn't an excuse. He's used to kind of dealing with this. But that was a factor for him yesterday, and he's probably going to be optioned, is my guess. That's just speculation, but he's probably going to be optioned back down because the Brewers don't need a 6-man rotation currently. But he's gonna go down to AAA. He's going to learn from that experience. He's going to be better next time. You saw that he was amped up a little bit, and that's to be expected. I mean, anyone making their major league debut, that's to be expected. And in the zone, and look, Levering and I in the booth, we have actually, before the pitch comes in, after the pitch comes in, a few seconds after the pitch comes in, we actually can see whether or not it was a strike or a ball, according to the ABS system. And he was getting squeezed, and Gary was not challenging because it was early in the game. Gary's kind of learning, hey, I got to pick my spots to challenge. Those are strikes. And I think maybe he would have been able to settle in a little bit better. Although, look, it snowballed on him once that bunt hit by Isaiah Kiner-Falefa happened. It's first and second, one out. You could see that it sped up on him a little bit. He'll learn from that. He'll learn to slow it down and be able to execute pitches and make pitches a little bit better. But I agree with you, Mike. I thought the stuff looked good. He's going to be a big leaguer for a while. Well,
and then let's go back to the series opener in Boston because it did kind of set the tone. It didn't work on the opening night of the series, but Wilson Contreras, doing the Wilson Contreras, and I shouldn't just say it's an act, because if we got a hitter that's been hit 24 times by the Cubs, we're probably reacting in that way as well. There was no intention. It's just the style of how Chris Hook and the Brewers want to and need to pitch a hitter that is on top of the plate and dives over the plate a little bit with his approach. But then Contreras had a hell of a series. That was kind of crappy to watch on Monday night, and we're go get him kind of a thing. And the Brewers even reacted saying, we've seen this skit a lot for a long time. But it did, Contreras, it worked for him. he had a hell of a series.
Yeah, he was 5 for 9, right? With a homer, a double. He was on base a ton. Yeah, he had 4 walks in the series, punched out only twice. So he can hit. Although, look, the Brewers have kind of handled him well. I mean, I'm looking at his numbers here right now against the Brewers. He's played 123 games against the Brewers,
right,
with 477 plate appearances. I mean, that is a lot of plate appearances. I mean, he's been in the league for 10 years now, right? So that's to be expected. He's only hit 232, and part of the reason why he's only hit 232 against the Brewers. Now, it's not awful success, or the Brewers haven't had great success. It's still a 765 OPS. So he has been productive at times. But part of the reason why he's only hitting 232 against the Brewers, which is lower than his career average, is because they pound him in. That's where you have to get him out. Yeah. And so he is a diver. He actually, I'm noticing that he's off the plate even a little bit. Last year, he was right on the white line and then diving. Look, I actually disagree with you, Mike. I think it's a total act. I think it's a tired act. and we don't we're usually eye to eye on a lot. I think you've been hit 24 times because you're diving. Yes, some pitches have gotten away from the Brewers pitchers, but he is 100%. He's a bully. He's trying to intimidate the Brewers pitching staff, and it's he's just a bully. He's one of those old school bullies, and he won't watch. If someone were to confront him, he wouldn't do a thing. I'm telling you, he's one of those guys that is all talk, and he's trying to intimidate the Brewers pitchers to kind of stop pitching him in and make mistakes out over the plate. And look, it did work. It worked for him for the series, but it's a tired act. I'm sure his teammates are tired of it. But that's just how he plays the game, unfortunately. And we have to be the victims, or I guess we have to watch it, right? We watch this a lot.
And we won't get him. We won't see him again this year
unless
he's traded. What did you make of Miz's outing 2 days ago? He was so good. And then was it a pitch? Was it a tiredness factor? Because he gets the first out, a strikeout in the 6th, and then it just all goes away. What was that react?
Yeah, there's so people are kind of talking about that situation as if Murph kind of made a mistake, didn't have anybody ready in the pen. And my pushback to that is, Murph is probably going to be introspective about that and understand I can learn from this. When Miz, even if he looks like he's cruising, and he did, I mean, he had 10 strikeouts and he had a 2-hitter going. He looked absolutely unhittable, and even looked unhittable to start that inning, punching out the first hitter. Then the next 12 of the 13 pitches were outside the zone. Now, they weren't all terrible misses. There were some terrible misses, but there were some that were just missing. And so I think Murph is going to learn from that and say, okay, when Miz gets around this pitch count, it could unravel for him quickly.
Right.
He is such a unicorn, Mike. I'm telling you, he is such a unicorn that his stuff is so good that there is always that factor for Miz, where you kind of almost have to be ready to hit the red bullpen button or pick up the phone because the stuff is so good that, and he's still so young and he's still so inexperienced that, it can get off the rails quickly, and he might not pull it back on the track. Now, this situation in the 6th was a situation where he admitted that he lost his legs. And so now I think what Murph and Chris Hook and Jim Henderson are going to do is they're going to just realize, okay, we at least have to have someone, even if he's got a no-hitter going with 90 pitches, we have to have someone kind of up and ready and playing catch, especially this early in the season. And they'll learn from that. I don't think it was their mistake because, again, this is the first time that happened. Right. And he looked like he was unhittable. It was some of the best stuff. Witnessing what Miz can do is witnessing stuff that we haven't ever seen before. Right. Really. I mean, the guy is a unicorn, and it's super fun to watch.
And I think, Vinny, when it goes away, and it went away just from a location standpoint, and I don't have a full recall of all of his game logs and moments, but I don't recall off the top of my head where he's been beaten up with the other team's bats. When he loses it, he loses it in the zone, and it's walks that will kill him. It's not like, 5 batters in a row are ever going to barrel him up, because I've just never seen it happen.
It hasn't happened. It's been walks. It's been like little swinging bunts down the third base line. It's been his own issues, maybe throwing to the bases.
Yeah.
We saw that a couple of times. 100%. And then every once in a while he'll get into a situation where it is a 3-1 count, and he will lay one in there kind of down in the zone. When he's up, they look like they're swinging underwater. I mean, these are some of the ugliest swings I've ever seen. It's a triple threat, maybe even a quad threat fastball. What does that mean? It means so he is throwing the velocity. It's 100 to 104. We've seen him all the way up there. It's the low release height. So like what that means is he's releasing it lower to the ground, which is hard for a hitter to pick up. They're just not used to picking up a ball from a pitcher that low. And then it's entering the zone super flat. And now he's adding, and what Chris Hook has added to his arsenal is the fact that they've got him back spinning the ball more. This is all kind of nerdy technical stuff.
Yeah.
But it's still so it's making the fastball actually defy gravity even more. So there's 4 elements to his fastball that are making it unhittable. And, the velocity might be the least of it, right? So it's special. And the Brewers are kind of witnessing like something real special here. And, he might not win a Cy Young this year just because I think he's still kind of figuring things out.
Right.
But he'll win one at some point when he does figure everything out.
When you talk about, okay, so we're going to make this a 5th grade conversation, but when you talk about that, the more spin that he's putting on it, many times a fastball is called a sinker. When he throws that, there's no sink, right? I mean, it stays on its plane. Right. You call it defying gravity, but it stays here because most fastballs are going to, for a right-hander, it's going to go down and in to a right-handed hitter. And down and away from a left-handed hitter. Well, when you're talking about that he's added to his arsenal, that ball doesn't drop. Right? He doesn't move down like a sinker does. Yeah,
he's got it where he's just kind of tilting the axis of the rotation, and now all of a sudden it's kind of like boring in and up to a right-handed hitter. It is very unique. They've never seen anything like it before. Any major league hitter. I mean, so what I look at when I'm watching a pitcher, I'm watching a number of different things. I'm watching the stuff. I'm watching how it's coming out of their hand. I'm watching the delivery. But mostly, Mike, I'm watching the swings that hitters take. And I'm telling you, you just haven't seen these kinds of swings from major league hitters. These are really good hitters, some of them, that are just, they look like they have no shot, no shot. And so that's what makes them so special to me is when I'm watching the hitters swing.
What has impressed you from the players that have arrived that weren't in Brewers uniforms a year ago, that we're 12 games in, so we're not even a 10th of the way through the season, obviously, but of the newcomers, what do you like and what's maybe in store as we continue to build here in April?
Kyle Harrison. That's the first name that comes to mind. Has looked really, really good through the first couple of starts. We're going to see him again here soon. And look, for me, it's the fact that kid you had to play. Okay, here's how else I look at players and evaluate players is I'm watching how their careers are unfolding. This guy was a high school draft pick, one of the top picks for the San Francisco Giants. He was then a top 20 prospect in all of baseball. The Giants kind of messed with him a little bit, like in terms of we're going to start you now. Okay, we're going to throw you in the pen. This was last year. Now we're going to trade you, and then the Red Sox acquire him, and then they put him in AAA for 3 months. And now, come on back up. And then while he's in AAA, I talked to him about this. While he's in AAA, they messed with him like a ton. Like, let's go ahead and throw this. We're not really going to care about your delivery. We just want you to throw this pitch in this location, and we want you to throw it as hard as you can. Like, that's not pitching development. So now he comes over to Milwaukee. Yes, it's Chris Hook. Yes, it's Jim Henderson. But also, it's the kid. Like, this kid has dealt with all of that. You're trying to make it and fulfill your dreams. And look, at the end of the day, there is so much money at stake for these guys, life-changing, generationally changing type of money, where it's like there's a lot of pressure on players. You see all these players coming in and out of Major League Baseball, and then we never hear from them again. I was one of those guys, Mike, right? I mean, I had my shot. Your window is so short.
right.
in order to make a lot of money and establish yourself in the big leagues. So for all that to happen to a guy like Kyle Harrison, to kind of be messed with, to kind of really, not get much of a shot with the other organizations, the Brewers pounce on him, give him a shot, and he looks like he's going to be a mid-rotation guy all year long as he stays healthy, just because, again, like, that's what it should look like. I mean, those starts, his first starts, were awesome. And so he'll continue to improve. So that's number one. He's a guy that's really impressed me. Brandon Sproat last time out against the Royals. Now, that's a little bit more of a project for Chris Hook and Jim Henderson, but the stuff's off the charts. He's impressed me just in terms of what he can be. And then, I think those are the two guys that stand out right away for me.
Talk to me about Rengifo and Hamilton. And I mean, Rengifo hadn't hit yet. I know he's run into some tough luck. You've talked about it on the broadcast. I mean, he's squared up a bunch of balls, and when he has, they've been at somebody. Mm-hmm. But what have you seen from him and Hamilton out of the gate?
Yep. So, I'll be frank a little bit. Like, they're probably going to need a little bit more production, especially if guys are going to be dinged up. They're going to need some more production at third base from Rengifo. Namely, he has run into some hard luck. He's been there, done that though. 6 years in the big leagues with the Anaheim Angels, and he's been productive. Down year last year because he played a little bit more. I do like the defense from Rengifo, but we're waiting for that bat and that production to come. I think it will, maybe as the weather gets warmer, and as he starts to feel a little bit more comfortable. I think within this group, this is a group where they just do that. They tap into, a guy. We need you to step up type of a thing, and we have all these guys around you to be complementary pieces, and then guys get gobbled up by that feeling around the clubhouse and the dugout. I think he'll be one of those guys. He's talented enough. David Hamilton, he can kind of keep doing what he's doing. I don't know if he's like an everyday at bat guy, just because the bat might just be a little bit light. But I love what he's doing in terms of bunting, getting on base, stealing bases. He's playing pretty good defense. Yesterday was kind of a bump in the road at second base for him a little bit.
That's a big moment.
Big moment. That was a kind of a momentum changer. But I like his game. He's going to fit right into Milwaukee. Those two guys would be in more of the category of, let's see you guys take a little bit of a step forward going forward.
Are you a Jersey guy? I mean, do you pay not New Jersey, but the City Connects were released for around Major League Baseball today? Are you a Jersey guy, and did you like what you saw? I think they're pretty cool.
I think they're cool. I think I was on John Kuhn's show earlier, and he said, look, the sequel's never going to be the same as the original, because the original was awesome, right? And so I think this is going to grow on a lot of people that are more of the original type of a City Connect people. Right. I think people are this is going to grow on them. And what I like, Mike, about this City Connect, it's not just a city. And I know that this is kind of how they branded it. Obviously, this is a statewide connection. And this team, we all love the Brewers. We all love the Bucks. We all love the Badgers. We even jump on Marquette's bandwagon at times, right?
Yeah.
And the Packers, obviously. And those are the teams that connect us around the state. But not only that, just we feel, and I bring this up all the time on the broadcast because I think it's fun, but I also think it's true. Like, we're all part of this team cheese, right? Yeah. We're all part of this together type of thing, living around this state. We all love Wisconsin, and I do love that they kind of really kind of dove into that idea with these new City Connects. I think it's really cool.
Two final thoughts on the way out. Washington comes in for a weekend set, begins tomorrow night, which some fans, if you haven't paid attention, Joey Weimer, who is really popular. I mean, I think the players are going to love having him back as long as he doesn't, he got off to a great start. Weimer's in their lineup, and you get a National League team. This is our first National League team of the year, and then Toronto comes in after that. So it's a 6-game homestand. What do you look forward to? What's on tap?
Well, I think after that Boston series, the fact that they didn't win, look, I think if they would have won that last game, everyone would have been like, okay, World Series, let's buy the World Series tickets. Now we're seeing a little bit of a hiccup in the road just because of that one game. That's the nature of baseball. So go ahead, and you got to win both series, I think, just because you are at home. And it's not must win type of a situation, but you do need to kind of, especially with guys that are dinged up, like feel like, okay, even that we're navigating through these injuries, we still got to take care of business against Washington, even though they are off, they were off to a good start. Now they're 4-8. So you should be able to kind of handle business there. And then the Blue Jays are struggling. They lost 6 of 8 against the White Sox and another team that has been really struggling. So hopefully they can take care of business. And the Rockies, they lost 6 of 8 between the Rockies.
Yeah, there you go.
So take care of business between both those clubs and move forward.
And then, so this afternoon, I'll pull back the curtain. I haven't told our viewers or listeners this yet, but texted you about it earlier. I'm going to get a chance later today to interview Matt Arnold, the Brewers GM, for lack of a better term. He's got a different title, but that's what he is. And then we're going to play that tomorrow morning. Your impressions of what he has done, and maybe a line of questioning that if you're sitting and visiting with Matt Arnold that you'd like to take on.
Yeah. He's done an amazing job. I think he's the best GM. I mean, he's coming from the GM tree of Andrew Friedman, right? Who has also done a phenomenal job in LA. It's not just about the money with Andrew Friedman. He's also built this culture. Matt Arnold is doing the same thing here in Milwaukee with obviously way less of a payroll. So I actually think Matt Arnold's a better GM than Andrew Friedman just because of the lack of resources that Arnold has. Yeah. So what I would ask him is, I would say, how are you doing this? Is it more, is that your number one priority to kind of lead from the top down, the best organizations? And we've seen this throughout the state of Wisconsin, whether it's the Badgers or the Packers or the whatever, all the best teams that we have witnessed in the state is because there's been great leadership at the top, whether it's 100%. Ron Wolf, right? Or, take
Ted
a pick.
Thompson and when John Horst had it rolling it with the Bucks, and is not so much right now. But yeah, the leadership matters.
Barry Alvarez, right? So yes, it matters. And so is that his number one priority? And then now all of a sudden, okay, you got to kind of move the chess pieces around the board. And he's just so good at that part of it too. You have to have both, and he's done both. It's then hiring Pat Murphy, and he's the right guy for this team. It's the right team. So I would say, how does he balance that? And then how does he balance the idea about, how does he take, because Murph's an old school guy, but yet he's using the tools of analytics. Matt Arnold is very analytical heavy, yet really trusts the feel of his scouts. He really trusts the feel of Pat Murphy and Chris Henderson and Jim Henderson and Chris Hook. How is he balancing that? So those are some of the questions that I would kind of lean into in that regard. And is he going to, I would ask this, even though I know the answer to it, is he ever going to really push some chips in if he's feeling it like, okay, does he ever have that gut feel? Okay, this is the year. I'm going to push a couple extra chips in. And if he does, those chips can't necessarily be chips that he, I guess, really, really believes in, because that's what he's so good at. He holds back the right guys, right, from a deal. So I would kind of ask him some of those questions.
It's a fun time, and it's maintained really, really hard to do. Small market teams in non-cap leagues, this is the only one we really know of, but a small market team like Milwaukee, to maintain the success, it's just so rare. They've done it in Tampa. They've done it from time to time with Oakland and in Sacramento or whatever they are, the A's. Mm-hmm. But the Brewers are in that mode, and it comes from Stearns and Arnold. And above that, because Mark Attanasio has given them the tools with which to work and develop. It's really a great story. What's your broadcast work look like rolling forward? It's an interesting question. I don't know the answer, but what are you doing coming up?
So I'm off for the National Series, but I'll, of course, be watching. In fact, I'm taking my wife and kids to the game. We'll be sitting in a suite. My buddy owns Tayback Law, so he's going to be, we're going to be joining him in his suite. Jim Brzezinski, awesome friend of mine. But so we'll be there for the game tomorrow, and then I'm working pre and post for the Blue Jays series. So, we'll be mixing and matching and kind of doing our thing. And between, Rock and myself and Tim Dillard. So, yep, we're kind of doing the same deal as last year.
All right. Well, as always, your time here brought to you by Potawatomi Sportsbook and Casino. Bet above the rest. It's always good to visit with you, Vinny. Look forward to seeing you at the ballpark next week.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. You too.
All right. Thank you. Vinny Rottino joining us as he does Thursdays on the program. Let me take a minute and run through and thank who our sponsors are on the program, because One Community Bank is a big part of what we do. Presented by One Community Bank. Stop by any one of their locations or visit onecommunity.bank to upgrade to Feel Good Banking. One Community Bank, proud to serve clients, support colleagues, and invest in our communities. Feel Good Banking, member FDIC. We are also presented by M3 Insurance. We help businesses and individuals manage risk, purchase insurance, and provide the right benefits to their employees. M3ins.com. Program is also presented by Neuroscience Group, excellence in brain, spine, and pain care. Choose Neuroscience Group, neurosciencegroup.com, and also brought to you by our good friends, as Thursday is, with Vinny Rottino, by Potawatomi Sportsbook and Casino. Bet above the rest, and by Habish, and Rotier. 13 locations ensure you get a hometown attorney who understands your life and the impacts of your injury, personally committed to your recovery. So a big thank you to all of our sponsors looking to add more and looking to add more on our YouTube stream. So if you have friends who you think might enjoy this, please share the link on YouTube Live. Subscribe to that. Also, we're always live on Twitter. We're going to be live on Facebook coming up in a few weeks. There's a meta plan that you got to work through to do that, but also downloadable wherever you get your podcasts. We appreciate your support. I was, kind of keeping an eye on where we are in the Masters. Now, if you're live on this, Tommy Fleetwood is at 3 under. Kurt Katayama is at 4 under par through 10, but Fleetwood's 3 under through 7. Patrick Reed was 3 under through 3. He is now 3 under through 7. And so we're paying attention. It is Bryson DeChambeau even through 6. I love paying. This is my favorite golf tournament of the year. For many people, it is. I love the beauty of it, the prestige of it, the consistency that it's always back. It's the only of the majors, obviously, that is played at the same golf course every year. Every other major obviously moves around, but this is quintessential golf. I love all of this. So I'm going to spend a little time taking in some of the Masters coverage as we roll through the day. Darren had sent in this note when we were talking to Vinny. He said, we're not the Mets nor UW Platteville. So yeah, we're not the highest spending team, but we're also not in the dregs of Major League Baseball. I think one of the things that I've argued and fought for in the corner of Mark Attanasio is that the Brewers outspend their market every year. They're the smallest media market, smallest media package in Major League Baseball. There are 30 teams, and the Brewers are consistently 19 or 20 in payroll spending. And I think Mark Attanasio should be applauded for that, not ridiculed for that. So when they don't go all in measured by Cubs, Mets, Yankees, Dodgers, Braves standards is an unfair comparison. The league doesn't work that way. So I think that Attanasio has done a great job from an ownership level. And I think that the Brewers have been very skillful in how they have transitioned from Doug Melvin to David Stearns to Matt Arnold, and in their development of the system, minor league system, Dominican signings, Latin players that they have developed and get at an early age, like a Jackson Churio, like a Jesus Made. Those guys make a difference. And even in the trade market, sometimes not popular, but they have worked out. I think other major league teams don't want to trade, not to the exception of not doing it, but I think the track record has proved that the Brewers sometimes both win, But at worst, the Brewers win their trades, and they have done a very good job in that. All right, so tomorrow we're going to play back a conversation I'm going to have later this afternoon with Matt Arnold. He's going to join me today. We're going to record an interview that we'll play tomorrow morning, and I'm very excited about that. And Stephen Watson will join us. He's golf-centric, but also Brewer-centric. He's at the Masters today, and I will talk with him tomorrow on the program and get his reaction to what he's seen. And we'll have some Masters react as well. Plus, whether Wisconsin hockey advances in the Frozen Four or not, all of that on the docket tomorrow. As always, I appreciate you spending time with us. That's it for this Thursday edition of I Love Mondays. We'll talk to you. The Friday edition of I Love Mondays is less than 24 hours away. Oh, by the way, we're going to talk bourbon at the end of the show tomorrow, too. Joe Henry Jr., I'm going to taste the Bellefontaine from J. Henry and Sons tomorrow, and he will join us on that. Thanks again for being here. We'll talk to you again tomorrow on Friday. I Love Mondays, the podcast.
I love Mondays with Mike Heller.